Hi everyone, and welcome back to Real Estate Unlocked, your go-to mini-series where we break down everything you need to know about buying and selling a home. In this week's episode, we're talking about Section 3, possession date, occupancy, and the completion of the transaction in the new Manitoba Offer to Purchase. Let's dive in. This section of the offer answers three big questions that buyers and sellers have. When do I move in? What condition does the home need to be in? And how does the final payment work? This lays out the timing and responsibilities for both sides so that come possession day, everyone is on the same page. Part 1 of Section 3 is where the buyer and seller agree on a possession date, the day the buyer officially becomes the owner and can take possession of the home. This section also confirms that unless something different is written into the offer, the property must be completely vacant on the date of possession. In other words, the seller must be fully moved out, all personal belongings removed, and the home ready for the buyer to step into it without delays. If the property is tenant-occupied, then the buyer plans to continue that tenancy, that would be noted here under otherwise specified. This clearly documents that the tenants are permitted to remain in the home on possession day and that the vacancy requirement does not apply in this situation. Part 2 of Section 3 explains what happens on possession date and how the transaction is completed. So on possession day, the buyer gets the keys and any access codes to the home, along with any items that belong to the property, like garbage bins, recycling bins. The clause also explains what must stay and what must be removed. So fixtures stay with the property unless they were specifically excluded, and chattels are removed unless they were specifically included. These excluded fixtures and included chattels were specified in Section 2, Part 1 of the offer. If something that was supposed to stay is missing, or if something that should have been removed is left behind, then the seller can be held responsible. This section also clarifies that the transaction must be fully completed no later than 6 p.m. on the possession date. If the lawyers confirm that all the steps are completed sooner, the buyer may be able to take possession earlier within that date. The exact timing depends on how quickly the funds are transferred. The transaction is considered complete once the seller's bank has received full payment of the purchase price. With the updated Manitoba Offer to Purchase, we're looking at possession day more so as a walkthrough day rather than an actual move-in day. This ensures that all legal and financial steps are finalized before the buyer physically moves into the property. If there are a delay in funds, which can occasionally happen with mortgage financing, then the clause states that the buyer can extend payment up to 7 days as long as certain conditions are met. During that time, the buyer must pay interest on the unpaid balance. The buyer must cover any additional costs the seller experiences related to the delay. The seller may register a lien on the property, and the buyer can't make any renovations or alterations until everything is paid in full. This gives the buyer a short grace period while still protecting the seller financially. That's it for this week's episode of Real Estate Unlocked. If you're following along with the Offer to Purchase series, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out next week's episode, where we're going to break down Section 4, the purchase price. I hope you guys all have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next week.